Today, on Rise Up, we discuss the manifesto of the Mahdi and the goals and aspirations of God for mankind today. Next, sacred dialogues. What is the truth of reincarnation? Find out as we discuss the gems of wisdom found in the words of the riser Aba Al-Sadiq in his lecture series, The School of Divine Mysteries. Comments on the comments section. What are people saying about the knowledge of Aba Al-Sadiq? Join us as we answer questions and address statements made. Miracles of the Mahdi. Sister Menna Al Almahdi testifies to the extraordinary power of God through his messenger today, Abdullah Hashem Aba Al-Sadiq. And finally, moments of meditation. Sister Veronica leads us through some meditative exercises and guides our thoughts towards divine serenity. This is Rise Up.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rise Up. My name is Alia Halal.
Hello, welcome to Rise Up. My name is Irfan Alamgir.
And we're very excited to jump into the topic of today's episode, where we will be discussing the news around the world. We'll be talking to the believers. We'll be answering comments that have been given to various videos on our YouTube series that we have called The School of Divine Mysteries. That is a lecture series by the riser Aba Al-Sadiq. And we'll also be discussing the theme of today, and we've been wanting to get into this for quite a few days. We've mentioned it before, and it is reincarnation. A critical teaching of this call, of this religion, and actually of every religion, but it was something hidden away in the scriptures, and we want to extract those gems and actually talk about it and shed light on that.
Yes, so there's been a lot going on. I mean, in the news, there's also, we talk about this segment where we discuss natural disasters happening. We've had the torrential rain in Central Europe. We've now got a storm brewing in the Americas. We have the storm Helene that's catching a lot of news headlines. There is also the situation in the Levant with the bombing and terrorism that is going on there. So there is a lot to unpack, but our focus is mainly on the topic of reincarnation and how it kind of fits in with the Abrahamic faiths and not just the Eastern religions.
We're excited to jump into our various segments today, but before we get into it, let's give a quick introduction to our viewers on the various writings that are coming out from this platform. We have with us the Mahdi's Manifesto. We've been discussing it for quite a few days now. It's a very important piece of writing that is historical. It's going to change things dramatically, and it has already started. And we've seen that people from various parts of the world are alerted to the fact that this manifesto has been written with very clear guidelines on a practical call to action on what's needed. And we find that believers around the world in different countries are waking up and making that move to support the Qa'im and to support this call. We also have with us the Divine Just State magazine. The latest edition has come out for this month. So that's definitely worth checking out. divinejuststate.com is the website.
Yes.
And people need to go ahead and see what's going on there.
Yes, it's an amazing publication that happens on a monthly basis and includes all kinds of issues that are going on in terms of the dawah. The manifesto obviously has been grabbing all the headlines on our show, but this magazine is also one of those pillars that discuss the issues that the practitioners of our religion, the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, are facing around the world, as well as interesting topics. And I don't know if there's been a piece on reincarnation yet, but if there hasn't been, there should be. But we do discuss the commonalities between the religions and how the riser of the family of Muhammad, the second Mahdi Aba Al-Sadiq, brings everything together and shows the similarities in the religions rather than the differences.
And I want to give a shout out actually to the believers around the world who are tuning in right now, the various people who are watching and finding inspiration from the words of Aba Al-Sadiq that we are presenting here, and are finding motivation from his call to action, where he's telling the people it's time to rise up for humanity, rise up for peace and light, and a spiritual movement, a spiritual revolution that he's prophesied to bring to everyone, and he is doing so right now. So a huge shout out to all of our believers who are tuning in and who are also being mentioned actually in our Divine Just State magazine. It is these people, it is you guys, it is this global community of brothers and sisters that we have that can change this world, that can make things happen. And we are firm believers in that. We don't have that pessimistic ideology of the world is what it is. We have a commitment to God and we have faith in Him. And it is part of our faith that we must believe that things are going to become better, right?
Yes. The simplest way we can put it is that when you follow the man appointed by God, things change for the better, all the problems dissolve. And until that happens, the problems will persist. And this has been the case for how long now? We can see the turmoil in the Middle East. We can see the turmoil in the East and the West, all parts of the earth. And to put out this fire, to put out these storms, we really need a man appointed by God at the helm to navigate the ship into the divine just state, the Eden on earth. And this is the way we are going to create harmony between mankind. One God, a messenger appointed by Him, leading them into this divine just state.
Yes, exactly. So definitely check out the Mahdi's Manifesto to know more about what it is that the outline is from God at the moment for mankind. And definitely go ahead and check out divinejuststate.com to find the latest edition of this month. We're excited to jump into our topic. So we have the segments that we've got lined up for today. We're going to be going into the words of the riser of the family of Muhammad, Aba Al-Sadiq. Now, before we get into his words, a bit of context to reincarnation and why it is so key as a proof, actually, to this religion and to this call and to the truth.
Yes.
The fact that we say that Aba Al-Sadiq is the Qa'im, the word Qa'im is it's very significant. So it's an Arabic word. We should perhaps go back into that a bit. It's an Arabic word that is assigned to a prophesied figure who's meant to be coming in this day and age to pave the way to the Mahdi and pave the way to the kingdom of heaven on earth. And he comes here to establish, and he comes here to rise for the sake of light. And that is the significant role of the Qa'im, or the riser, which is the English translation of the word Qa'im. And there are religions out there that don't know that word. In Islam, in Shia Islam in particular, not even Sunni Islam, but Shia Islam, we have narrations which mention the word Qa'im, but other religions might not be aware of it. However, we do find in other religions the idea of the Savior appearing in the end times and appearing with Elijah, with Jesus, with the prophets and messengers of old. And this is why it's so significant, because the Qa'im is that common factor, that focus that all of the others revolve around and come towards. All these other names that are known in history and in scripture actually come to support him in his mission because he has the same mission.
Right. I mean, the Christianity and Islam, the two largest Abrahamic faiths, they have close to or over 3 billion people on the face of the earth. And in the mainstream, reincarnation doesn't appear so clearly, but you have to remember that both of these religions believe in the return of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. You know, the question is, how does he return? Does he return from a spaceship? Is he suspended somewhere in the vacuum of space and he slowly descends on a minaret in Damascus? Or is it another means by which he finds his way on earth? That's the discussion. And the discussion really is very interesting. And if you dig a little bit deeper into the mystical aspects of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, you don't have to dig too far until you find evidence of reincarnation and transmigration of the soul appear. It's usually in the Gnostic aspects of these religions, the mystical aspects. And there is a large body of evidence that indicates that it is very much a part of the Abrahamic heritage. It's just been lost because the people turned away from the true Caliph of God and became obsessed with the external practices, the apparent practices of worship.
Exactly. So it's interesting because if we're living in these times that we're saying that the people return to, and we're saying that the Qa'im is the one that they come around and that is mentioned in scripture, but it's not necessarily fully clear, or it's not something that mainstream institutions have been able to interpret because they weren't sent from God. These pastors and priests and non-working scholars of Islam, they were not sent from God or appointed by Him. They are simply fallible men who are trying to understand scripture and then deciding that they know what it means. But the truth of reincarnation is actually prophesied to be brought by the Qa'im, and this is why it's so fascinating, because one of the proofs that we find of the Qa'im mentioned in the narrations that he is recognized by is that when he comes to the people, he tells them who they truly are, meaning what their role has been through history, what their lives have been, meaning that they have been here before. He can look at an individual and say that you had a life before this one and you were someone else and your name was such and such, and that person will actually have those synchronicities and those memories and those dreams that will connect with what is being told to him, and it's actually the case that he's a returned soul, someone who's been here before.
It is very much a part of the religious narrative in Christianity and in Islam, and it's been lost because the family of the Prophet was let go of. And when you let go of this rope of guidance, you divorce yourself from the knowledge that they bring. And this is why things have happened. But actually, Alia, there's a huge body of evidence now in terms of research that's been conducted in the West, where people are describing these memories of past periods where they vividly recollect instances that they had no way of knowing. And there was actually a lot of research done in the United States by certain psychiatrists and psychologists. And they have accumulated all of these people who are saying that they have these, they either dream it or they have these
vivid memories,
and deja vu moments where they remember themselves in ancient garb, walking through streets that are not like the streets in the world today. And they have these very specific historical recollections of past events that they had no way of knowing. So this has been going on for a long time, and the research is still ongoing, and there is a lot of it.
And by the way, there have even been instances of people in this research that you'll find children describing memories of being shot at in various places on their bodies. And the researcher would be shocked by that statement, but when they would actually delve into what the child would describe, they'd find in the records another person who actually in the past had actually gone through the exact same kind of story that the child is narrating. How can that little kid know about this other person before in history who was killed in a certain way, and now he's describing that memory that was vividly stored in his mind and he can't let go of it? It's the only possible explanation is it's one and the same person.
Right, very interesting. And you know, the people who have these recollections, they then, because they don't find anything in the orthodox religions that they're a part of, they start going east, and they're like, well, reincarnation must be true. This is something that they feel so strongly that they've lived on earth before. And then they start going towards Hinduism and Buddhism to make sense of their memories, their dreams. And this is also something that is, I think, noteworthy, because they don't need to look east. They just need to look deeper within their own traditions. For example, Kabbalah in the Jewish tradition talks about reincarnation. There are rabbis who have this skill of looking at somebody's face, historically speaking, and they're able to tell them their previous incarnations, and this is also documented. In Christianity, in the Gospels, it's mentioned, again, we said this before, that Jesus indicated that John the Baptist was the reincarnation of the prophet Elijah that the Jews were waiting for. Not too dissimilar to the way that Muslims envision Jesus will return, but they rejected him at the time, and he was the forerunner to the appearance of Jesus. So reincarnation, in this way, is actually one of the ways towards guidance, because if great prophets and messengers are foretold to return as forerunners to certain personalities, and then you reject them because you're kind of expecting a UFO, and they land, and then the UFO unfolds and there's somebody walking out of the smoke.
Or someone comes out of the ground, like from the dirt, as in the case of Shia Islam, where they think Imam Hussein will return, and they know this. They know that the Imams are meant to return, but they don't know how. And they believe that they're buried, but they don't understand. And they say they will come out of the graves. Yes. But what does that really mean? And
this, actually, one of the reasons for this belief is because of the dim-witted literalists who are the Shia clerics and scholars. This is another problem that they created to spread this misconception that the earth will part and the skeletons will come out of the earth and they'll be reanimated into bodies, and then the soul will descend upon them and then they walk. If this really happened, then why is it that only 313 and 10,000 among the Muslims will follow? I mean, surely if the mausoleum of the Imams were to part and their bodies would rise,
and
they would
dust the dirt off and take their shroud around them and pull their sword out of the sheath, like all these strange analogies they have, the whole world would probably go to a standstill and immediately look towards what they're being shown and accept it to be the truth, because it would be so shocking. How could you reject something that otherworldly? It's not It's not something that happens.
Yes, exactly. And for the Sunnis, again, I would say, because for the Sunni Muslims, which I formerly was one, they will say, well, this is completely nonsensical. We have never heard anything about the Prophet Muhammad mention this, but the Prophet Muhammad indicated to them, for example, in the hadith, that he said, go in search of knowledge, even if it is to China. And of course, China was at that time a hub of Buddhism. And in Buddhism, of course, reincarnation is a central pillar, because from it, you understand how karmic consequence works. So if you had lived a very bad life and you were killing and pillaging and stealing and all of these things, you would be reincarnated as a lesser being, or maybe even as an animal. And if you were somebody who lived a righteous life, a pious life, you would be born into conditions that were more conducive for your spiritual evolution to go to that next level. And of course, every Sunni Muslim, once they look at who the true successor of the Prophet Muhammad was, will very quickly see that the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt said that reincarnation, or the Raj'ah, is a central part of the religion of Islam. And to reject it is to reject the family of the Prophet Muhammad, which he said, without them you cannot be guided to the straight path.
Absolutely. Aba Al-Sadiq, from him his peace, as the Qa'im, has actually brought together the scriptures that have mentioned reincarnation, both from the Abrahamic faiths as well as the Eastern religions. And he's shown that even if you want to stick to the mainstream Gospels and you don't want to go towards the Gnostic Gospels, even if you want to stick to the Holy Quran and you don't want to go to the narrations, the evidence is very clear and it's not something that can be denied. If we go to sacred dialogues, we can actually discuss the words of the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad and see what it is that he's saying about reincarnation and the return of prophets and messengers to the earth. So let's go ahead and check out the first segment that we have of Sacred Dialogues.
So in Judaism, we find that this concept shows up, and it's pointed out in particular in the New Testament. That's where we get kind of an insight into the thinking mind of the Jewish believer during the time of Jesus, peace be upon him. Yeah. Because they were, Jesus is asking his disciples, if you remember, he's asking them basically, what are the people saying about me, right? And what are some of the things that they said?
Some say Elijah or one of the other prophets, and some others say John the Baptist. Yeah. That's a particularly strange one.
So that is a strange one, and that we're going to talk about in specific in an episode about the transmigration of the soul. But let's talk about this expectation, or this talk that the Jews were having that Jesus was possibly Elijah.
Yeah.
The idea that they thought that Jesus could have been Elijah means that they were already in a state where they were waiting for a return of Elijah.
Yeah.
Who is Elijah for the viewer?
Elijah was one of the Israelite prophets, and he was actually taken. It says that he was taken in a chariot of fire, so his body, it was understood that his body actually left the earth. So the Jews were actually waiting for Elijah to return, and the return of Elijah was supposed to be one of the signs of the coming of the Messiah. But if they thought that Jesus could have been Elijah, that's kind of curious, because they had known Jesus presumably since childhood, because he grew up in the area, they knew his parents, It wasn't that they thought this was the body of Elijah which had descended from the heavens. So it's a particularly strange conversation, and actually I never heard an explanation explaining this conversation.
Yeah, so basically what you're pointing out, I think, Tiffany, to the viewer, is the idea that, Elijah, he was taken up in a whirlwind. The Jews expected Elijah during the life of Elijah that he would show up again or come back. He never did. And they continued to have this belief many, many years after, because there was a lot of time between Elijah and between Jesus. And so the return of Elijah became one of these signs that was associated with the emergence of the Messiah.
Yeah.
They took him as a precursor almost to the return of the Messiah. And it means that you were also pointing out the idea that because they think that Jesus could have been Elijah, and yet Jesus was born, they were open to the idea of reincarnation. They thought that Elijah's return, or the Jews understood that Elijah's return in the end times would have been one of a rebirth instead of one of being coming down from the heavens in a whirlwind as he went up.
It seems to be the case from the conversation. That's really the only explanation, that they seem to be believers in the concept of rebirth of the soul, that Elijah could come back in a different body. Or they also mentioned not even just Elijah, but one of the other prophets, that he would have been the return of one of the other prophets.
Jeremiah.
Yeah. So
that's really interesting now. So now they were expecting, they said that they thought that perhaps Jesus was John the Baptist. They thought that perhaps Jesus was Elijah. And they also thought that perhaps Jesus was Jeremiah. Mm-hmm. So now you have in Judaism this expectation of the return of many prophets in the time of the Messiah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because we're looking now, again, like we said earlier, it's not a Gnostic gospel. We're talking here about the Holy Bible, something that you can easily find from your shelf. And if you open that verse and you take a look at it, what Aba Al-Sadiq is saying is it's so clear. He's saying that these people were expecting Elijah to return as someone reborn, not as someone who would descend from the clouds, as is commonly understood now. But back then, the Jews themselves were thinking that a grown man could be one of the prophets of old.
Yes. The Jews had an expectation that before the Messiah, there would be a forerunner. And in their scriptures, in their texts, in their narrations, he was called Elijah. Elijah was one of the great prophets that was sent to the children of Israel to guide them. And his story is very well documented in the Old Testament. And he's a revered prophet in Judaism. But before the Messiah or the Mashiach comes, they were told that one of the ways to identify him is to recognize that he is preceded by the return of Prophet Elijah. And when he came, he didn't come as Elijah the name, Elijah the body, which existed many, many years before the advent of Jesus Christ. They saw the body of John the Baptist, a man who was calling out in the wilderness. And his job was to purify the people, the Jews that were alive at the time. And his focus was on repentance, and he would be the one who would appoint and anoint the Messiah. The Jews rejected this. They said, this is not the case, and of course we know what happened from there. But the point is that within the narrations of the children of Israel, they had this idea that Elijah would return. And return he did, because Jesus himself said, this is Elijah, pointing to the personality of John the Baptist. So it's there, and the Jews had this belief. The idea of the return was in their books, and I think Aba Al-Sadiq said it very clearly. It's undeniable.
Yes, and they even said that it could be Jeremiah, it could be someone else, so they know. They know that there are these personalities that can return, and they don't return, like you said, Irfan, just by coming from the clouds, but by being reborn.
Yes.
If it was a concept that existed back in the day for the rabbis, for the Jews, why did it get eradicated? Why is it that people have decided that that cannot happen right now? It's worthy of note, and it's something to really ponder upon, because this is a verse in the Gospels that scholars have not been able to give a satisfactory answer to. And this is another incredible thing about learning from Aba Al-Sadiq. He brings out these verses that are mainstream, that are known, but people don't understand them.
Yes.
And we just take them for, well, it's in the Bible or it's in the Quran. What can we do? We don't understand it. The Torah is saying it. Let's just go with it. But Aba Al-Sadiq is stopping everyone in their tracks and saying, actually, there's a very beautiful explanation that you guys don't know about. And the thing about Aba Sadiq's explanations as well is he doesn't pull something out of nowhere and claim that this is what it means, and you can't really connect it to anything. Every answer he gives is just a part of a puzzle, or it's a puzzle piece that you look back at the puzzle and you say, now it looks more complete. So it gives you that relief, it gives you that kind of serenity, that tranquility of, I'm getting to the end of my story, I'm getting to the end of the big picture. It's so wonderful, and it's true knowledge. True knowledge gives you that feeling of completion.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely, and it's very convenient how the Pharisees at that time, knowing what they knew, used this as a means to reject Jesus Christ. So reincarnation in this situation was one of the main kind of tools to recognize the Messiah, but because they conveniently deleted this part of the puzzle, they were able to delete Jesus as a candidate for the Messiah. And of course, the Christians and the Muslims believe, and this is a commonly held belief, that Jesus was indeed the Messiah. And he was rejected on rejecting the ideology of reincarnation. So it's very significant in this case. And it's now being used now to snub the Mahdi, the true claimant of the will of the Prophet Muhammad. Just because you don't know about it or haven't heard about it doesn't mean it's not true.
Exactly. I want us to go ahead and check out the next part of this episode. And you can find the full episode, by the way, on the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel in the School of Divine Mysteries playlist. But let's go ahead and check out a little excerpt that we took from the same episode, the next clip that we wanted to go into regarding reincarnation from the words of Aba Sadiq.
No, it's not emphasized. And then Jesus says something interesting, right, about who Elijah is.
Yeah.
What does he say?
You mean later on?
Yes.
He said that he was speaking about John the Baptist, and he was saying that John, none of the prophets were, John was basically the culmination, the greatest of the prophets who had come. And he said to his disciples, if you will accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. So he said that John the Baptist was the Elijah who was to come. You know, we spoke about how Elijah, the appearance of Elijah, was supposed to be a precursor to the Messiah. And he said that already happened. And this was after John the Baptist was gone. And he said that this was the Elijah who was to come.
Now, you as a Christian, as a former Christian, how did they take it? How did they understand it?
So that's the issue. They don't have a satisfying explanation for it. They say things like, he came in the spirit of Elijah. He came forth in the same spirit that Elijah had.
Like in the same, doing the same things, like in the same sunnah.
Yeah, that he was like Elijah, and that he fulfilled that sign, because they believe that Jesus was the Messiah. So they have to believe that the sign of Elijah coming was fulfilled. And of course, they take the words of Jesus seriously. But they reject the concept of reincarnation. So the only way that they're able to make sense of it is just saying he's like Elijah. But Jesus didn't say that. He said he was Elijah.
Yes.
There you go. I love how when you listen to that conversation between Aba Sadiq and Tiffany, especially on these topics, because Tiffany was a former Catholic. For her to get that, and you see it, you see
versed
that journey.
in the scripture. She was very well.
Very versed.
She went to the Bible school as well, Bible study.
She's actually very knowledgeable in the Gospels. She was very into like the idea of studying the Bible and understanding the verses. So you see the delight on her face because of these ideas that were not there before. They weren't understood before. And Aba Sadiq actually shows her, hey, look, did you realize this verse means this? And then she connects it and she goes, right. And you're as a viewer, you're going through that journey with her of recognizing that there's so much that we didn't understand. And reincarnation is a huge thing. Imagine, for us, we've known it for a while. We've understood it for a while. We live it.
Yes.
But for a Christian out there, for a Muslim, for a Jew, in this day and age, it's not like the Jews back in the time of Jesus. Now it's seen as polytheistic to believe in reincarnation. It's seen as offensive to God. They see it as wrong. It's wrong to even mention that this could be a concept. But it's clear that Aba Sadiq is showing that it's right there in the Bible.
Yes, and Tiffany sheds a light on another important point, that when Aba Sadiq asks her, what was the belief at the time when you were a former Christian? And Tiffany says that the belief was that she was taught by the clerics is that he was in his spirit, he was like him, but he wasn't him returned. So that so as to put the concept aside. And this is, again, another proof of how dangerous it is when the scholars come forward without any right and start interpreting the words of God. The only people who are qualified to do this are the people who God has chosen, appointed, and sent for the guidance of mankind.
And I do have to add that any good-hearted Christian out there who's listening to that explanation of, well, Elijah just, he had that spirit of Elijah, but he wasn't truly Elijah, and that's okay. That's enough. And still Jesus is the Messiah. I know that there are good people out there who truly do believe in God, and they out of their sincerity are trying to find knowledge. So they'll go to those non-working scholars and ask them for the explanations, and that's the kind of answer they'd receive. But I'm sure that anyone out there who's sincere has to admit that it's a very apologetic answer. It's not a satisfactory answer at all. It's something very flimsy, very whimsical. The idea that God promises that Elijah is to come before Jesus, and we indeed do believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Hence, God cannot have been lying. Elijah must have come before him. And for us to now say that it was just the spirit of Elijah, not Elijah in the literal form, but the spirit. This is, I would say, this is really belittling God's promises and really letting down the team, of prophets and messengers out there who were meant to fulfill a role. And the scholars have not done them a good service by trying to describe them as coming in spirit, when indeed they came. They came with a purpose. They were right there. Elijah was right there in the flesh.
Yes.
Something to understand.
Something to understand. And I think people will now be wondering, well, is there any parallel in Islam? And I think the next clip talks about the strong indication towards the concept of reincarnation within Islamic texts. And
I'm excited to go into that one as well, because it really goes into some of the most incredible narrations that you find in the books from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. So let's go ahead and look at the next clip of Sacred Dialogues, where Aba Al-Sadiq sheds light on the Islamic texts regarding reincarnation.
Well, we have hadiths that state that the companions of the Qa'im are all people that have lived past lives in the past. There's narrations that state that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said, or the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam said that, for example, Sumayya, who was the first female martyr in Islam, that she would be one of the 50. And also the hairdresser of the daughter of Pharaoh, who was a martyr in the time of Pharaoh, she would also be one of the 50 women, one of the 50 companions of the Qa'im. There's narrations from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that explicitly state that Salman al-Farisi and Abu Dujana and Miqdad and the 7 sleepers and Joshua son of Nun, that all of them would be people that would return alongside the Qa'im. So now we have prophets, judges, we have saints, we have companions of Muhammad. All of these characters, they return in the end time. And not only that, but also angels manifest themselves. And we have the manifestation and the coming of angels such as Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and some of the narrations state that the Qa'im, he always has these companions that are on his left and right and behind him, and that the angel Gabriel is always on his right, Michael's always on his left, and you have some narrations state Muhammad is behind him, enforcing him. Some of them state it's Raphael. But you have this idea of them being there.
Wow.
And we do have this imagery more available and pointed out in the New Testament and the Gospel, because we have scenes, right, where Jesus was with his companions and he takes them somewhere and he shows them something. In one of the miracles of Jesus that's not as pointed out as some of the other ones. What do you have? You have Jesus takes his companions, and there's this scene where there's a transfiguration of Christ that takes place, where he kind of raises his hands out and he reveals to his companions his true nature. So they get to see him in the light form. And they're in awe. and all of a sudden they see two people on his left and on his right. And who are these two people?
Moses and Elijah.
Moses and Elijah.
Yeah.
So they recognize it instantly that it's Moses and it's Elijah, and it says that they go and they try to set up tents for them and,
So real
and
for them.
prepare for them. So now we have in Christianity, Jesus is going around, he's healing people, he's performing miracles and all these things, and he has his students, which are the disciples, but he also has these prophets and messengers who their souls were around Jesus, following him as disciples, as if they were looking for bodies to come into, right? Or they were going to be incarnated soon, or perhaps at that moment they were incarnated into two people. But we have this idea that accompanying the messenger in every time
The other messengers
are the other messengers that are there to
That's so
enforce
true.
and to help.
That is a beautiful depiction by Aba Al-Sadiq of something that should really thrill and excite anyone out there who believes truly in Christianity or in Islam or in Judaism. Anyone out there who actually loves God and loves the messengers of God and the prophets and the companions. The fact that Aba Al-Sadiq is saying that they have returned and they're right here. He's mentioning names like Salman, he's mentioning names like Elijah, he's mentioning names like Abu Dhar and Joshua, the son of Nun, and Jonah and Miqdad, the companions of the cave, the seven sleepers, and all these people from different time periods. I mean, just saying it gives me goosebumps, honestly. The idea that all these incredible names that we grew up reading their stories and being motivated by them and getting inspired by them, they actually, all of them, have so much loyalty to God and are so faithful in this mission of returning earth to an Eden, of taking people to a kingdom of heaven, that they come to the Qa'im in the end times, in this time, and say, we're here, let's do it together. I mean, wow,
Yes,
you know?
it is powerful.
It's
and
amazing.
it's something to be excited about, because the divine just state is created by the best of the best returning, and this is what the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt said. They said that the best of the best would return and the worst of the worst would return. So the evil personalities that oppose these great prophets and messengers, they have also returned. This is that final, the battle lines that are drawn before the establishment of the divine just state. And not only that, Alia, the mentioning of, and lots of, especially the Muslims who call them of the Shia persuasion, will have heard this hadith, and the mentioning that Gabriel will be on the right and Michael on the left. Now, are these angels with huge wings that extend 600 wings into the heavens?
Invisible entities.
Invisible entities. Or are these angels that have taken a human vessel in order to implement God's will on earth and fulfill these narrations? So there are some it's a very exciting topic. It's something that's been covered in the Goal of the Wise. Aba Al-Sadiq has talked about it extensively in his Divine School of Mysteries series. You saw a few snippets of it with Sister Tiffany, and it is a topic worth considering, because if you are watching this, and by the way, it is no coincidence that you're watching this, if you are hearing us now talking about this, it is a blessing given by God. Not that you're hearing me and Alia talk about reincarnation, but the fact that we are giving you the glad tidings of the appearance of the Qa'im, the Mahdi, who is recognized by his teaching specifically of this truth that was lost in history thanks to the scholars of misguidance, that it is now being reintroduced to you. And if you are listening to us, and if you think what we're saying makes sense, and we are giving you scriptural backing for what we're saying, then perhaps you too have a returned soul that yearns for the truth, that yearns to find the Imam of the time, that yearns to come like the clouds of the sky gather around the Qa'im and give victory to the divine just state that he promises.
I think it's a momentous time. It's a historical time. You're absolutely right, Dr. Irfan. We're talking to you from a blessed platform. We're talking to you from a blessed channel. You're watching a channel that has been blessed by God, because it is the channel established by the Savior of mankind today, who has the Spirit of God in him. And when we are telling you that, and you're hearing our voices telling you this, then as someone who is looking for the truth, if the viewer is a truth seeker, if the viewer is sincere to God, then surely a spark of curiosity should ignite within you. Or surely you should feel that hope of, is it true? Should I look into this? And the answer is yes. You should always search for God. And if someone is saying God is here, then look into it. Because we're living in a time right now where people need God. The world needs change. Humanity has to come first, and unfortunately, it's coming last everywhere you look, except for this place where Aba Al-Sadiq has established that mankind has the right, the God-given right, to live in the kingdom of heaven on earth. And he's actively moving forward and establishing it and doing so. So if you're looking for God and you're looking for a creed that agrees with godly principles, then look no further than this place that says to you that the prophets and messengers themselves have returned to enforce it, to establish it. And it's such a great time.
Yes, and if you consider the number 313, any Muslim would say, well, this is a significant number because these were the number of warriors in the Battle of Badr that gave victory to the Prophet Muhammad in the first ever war that was fought against the Arabs at the time
and
versus the pagan Arabs and the Islamic religion. And it's a number of victory. And this number 313 is also significant because we have narrations that indicate that there were 313 messengers that came to mankind. And if you then just think a little bit more wider, you have the mentioning of certain personalities that return, like Joshua the son of Nun. He is an accepted prophet and messenger in Judaism, Christianity, and in Islam. And he returns. So this number 313 indicates the return of prophets and messengers who lived before. And if you tie the narrations together, you can see the picture beginning to form. The returned prophets and messengers form the foundation of the support for the Qa'im to give victory in this day and age.
Exactly, and it's a race. It's a race towards victory. It's a race towards a place of peace and justice. The narrations have stated time and time again that this is a time where you must crawl over ice to reach the destination, a time where you have to really make that step, really make that leap of faith. And the world is feeling it. It's almost like the human body which gets a fever and you start to feel that feverish sensation and you're heating up and you feel those symptoms. The earth itself is diseased and the people are waking up and they're sensing that and they can see there's something very wrong. The air itself has changed. Time itself is moving in a very different rate than it used to. Nothing feels the same anymore because we're getting somewhere. We're reaching a time that's been prophesied that's going to escalate. And in order to be in the right place at the right time, people have to move. They have to change. They have to do something. Something is required from you. And Aba Al-Sadiq said it in his manifesto, and he quoted the Holy Quran where it says, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in their own selves. So investigate this truth, look into it, make that first step to research and read and ponder and question. And don't be afraid of the unfamiliar. Be brave enough, be strong enough in your faith towards God that you know that no matter which unfamiliar terrain you go into, He won't lose you or abandon you. He'll always be with you. And look for Him. And we are right here. We are people who can be contacted. You can find us on our website. You can call us. You can email us. Our email address is on the website itself. It should be on the screen right now. And we would be so happy to hear from you if you call in even to the show, and we'd love to answer your questions.
Yes. Call in by all means and tell us if you've had these memories of past lives that you're afraid to talk about. And I personally know Muslims from Sunni and Shia backgrounds who have told me that they have had these memories.
Absolutely.
But when they went to their religious clerics, they were told this is just a figment of their imagination. If you've had something like this, call in, let's talk about it, let's discuss the issues, and let's reach the truth of the matter. So this is something definitely that people should be doing. Pick up the phone, call us, we're here, and we would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So, and also we also want to add very quick that we do accept Skype calls as well, which is wonderful. We just found that out from our producer. And that's actually very exciting because we've been wanting to have Skype calls here on our show, and we'll definitely be doing that moving forward with many people. And we're going to introduce you to so many great believers around the world, different professors, different people from Kenya, Philippines, Canada, you name it. We're going to show you who your brothers and sisters are from around the world who are supporting Aba Al-Sadiq in this day and age. Now, one of those people who is a beloved sister of ours, who's actually been on the show before, is Menna Al Almahdi, Menna Khuli. She's a great person.
She is.
A lot of faith in Aba Al-Sadiq, and that faith actually led her to witnessing this miracle that was so wonderful and actually has to do with our topic of reincarnation as well and the return of the soul.
Yes.
Very awe-inspiring. And it really testifies to what Aba Al-Sadiq says, that the soul is that mysterious, enigmatic entity that there's so much about it that he's going to reveal soon. So let's go ahead and see what he showed Menna regarding her soul and what she saw.
So today I would like to share with you guys a miracle that I witnessed with the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad, Aba Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. It was back a few years ago when I had been wishing to know my incarnation. And I had, it was a long time like of me asking him, and he wasn't telling me, he was saying I wasn't ready yet. And I was waiting patiently, but at some point I couldn't wait anymore. I was like, I really would love to know. And I went to him and I said, can you please let me know who I am? And I remember that day he didn't really say yes or no, he just said, follow me. So we were living back then in a house, and that house had like a garden outside, and in the garden there was a little pond with stones surrounding it, a few rocks. And I followed him to that garden, and he then alayhi salam started asking me a few questions about like what time do I think I was in, and who from the sisters do I feel close to. And I did answer him. I did say like I'm not really sure at all from what time I could be in, because at that time I was also like, I wasn't new in the dawah, but I was more new in the concept of the incarnation. Like I wasn't really familiar with that. I was more getting to know about it. And also I had struggled with this thing of always looking down upon myself. I wasn't sure, who I could ever be in this time. So I just said to him, I'm not really sure. So then he said to me, okay, I want you to bend down on your knees and take a look in the water and tell me what you see. So I did do that. I did bend down and I started looking down in the water, but I couldn't really see anything. And I felt that it was because of lack of faith in me. Like I knew it wasn't because anything different that I should have done that from him. I knew that it was because I did not have enough faith that I could ever actually be seeing something in the water. It's those type of miracles that you can't even absorb or comprehend. When you hear about Jesus walking on water with his companions, you doubt, you think, oh, for sure that wouldn't happen to me, to someone like me, So I couldn't really come up with anything or say I could see anything. But he didn't give up on me. He kept saying, okay, take a look. And then he started getting a few rocks, little stones, and he started like sprinkling them on water as if it was magic. It looked to me like magic, that he was just sprinkling in the water. And I was like, wow, I was really amazed by that. But then he said, okay, now look again. And then I looked in the water, and I just had this like this big sigh, and I was like, I couldn't believe it, because I saw a woman, and I saw a woman who was staring right at me. And I actually remember seeing her even blink, like which even shocked me more. I was like, oh my God. I told him, Aba Al-Sadiq, I can see someone. I couldn't even say myself. I said, I actually didn't absorb that he's telling me that that's me. I was like, I can see a woman in the water, And I was like, wow, this is amazing, and he's like, that's you, he was telling me. And she was looking so like Egyptian, she had this pharaonic type of eyes. Her eyes I could even see her eye color in the water. They were like yellowish, they were like tiger. I could see tiger pattern, like she was so beautiful. And he actually told me, yes, she was one of the most beautiful women of that time. And I still couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I could actually see my soul in the water. To me, it felt like unreal. I could actually feel like I was dreaming, And then he started telling me a few things about her and how she lived back then and what was going on with her, and why he asked me who is this sister like that I'm close to, because I was close to that specific sister. She was part of that story. And when he told me, it's like a button that he pressed, it clicked. I was like, oh my God, that woman that I've been talking to, I actually do feel a motherly relationship with her. I actually do feel that. And it's like he just pressed the button of memories, like he actually made me feel like, wow, more like feelings and emotions that I started to recall. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this man is truly, truly from God. No man in this time and age can do something like this. To me, it felt like really those stories of the prophets and messengers of what we hear about Jesus walking on water with his disciples, and and she was so extremely beautiful. I even felt like wow, how could she be me? You know, she's way more beautiful than me, but it hit me that it's more like her soul that was shining like this, you know? And I was so grateful for that miracle, because it was the first time he actually showed someone their soul in the water. I haven't heard of that before. And he did make me feel special, and he did make me feel so loved. And that I was thinking in myself, oh, I'm probably nobody, you know, like I don't even deserve that. But he didn't just tell me you're this, he actually showed me. So I'll always be grateful for him for that beautiful miracle, and it would be one of those things that I take as my anchor. If I would ever, in a moment of like think, where am I, and I would remember that day and that memory. Yeah, thank you.
We're back here at AROPL Studios. That was Menna Al testifying to actually witnessing and experiencing her very soul after knowing about it from the riser Aba Al-Sadiq. You can see the conviction on her face and the faith she has in it. And it's absolutely something that anyone out there who believes in a God should believe, because God has created the soul. He's testified to creating it. It's in all the scriptures, and it exists as a thing that people they know about instinctively. We know that there is a soul. There is a higher realm. And Menna has now testified to witnessing her own soul. And that is something, I have to say, is such a remarkable thing to hear and to witness.
It really is quite a remarkable rendition of the events by Sister Menna, who is a close companion of the Qa'im Aba Al-Sadiq. And when you reach that level of closeness, you are given these beautiful glimpses into the mysteries of the soul. And of course, again, we go back to the narration that when the Qa'im comes, he brings the 25 letters of knowledge to add to the 2 that have been around since the time of Adam to now, and he completes 27 letters. And surely one of those letters must be about the mysteries of the soul. And if you contemplate on what Sister Menna describes while she was with Aba Al-Sadiq, in terms of what she sees in the water as a reflection that is not the one that represents her in this body, but another reflection. This is quite a stunning apparition, and something that many people who know Aba Al-Sadiq and his closest disciples will testify to, that they have seen things of a similar vein to what Sister Menna describes. And we will hopefully share more and more of those as we progress on our morning show.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a brilliant topic, and it's something that excites us a lot, because we see that God is so near, and God's abilities are so near and so tangible. You can really feel His Spirit, and you can really see Him when you are with Aba Al-Sadiq, and you are surrounding Him, and you are walking behind Him and in His footsteps and listening to His voice, and every little thing He says is significant. Every little thing He does is significant, and it draws you closer to what the goal is. And what is the goal of the wise? To find God in the man sent by God. That is the true meaning of the goal of the wise, right. The name of his gospel that he has written, which again you can access from our website and download and read in several languages, 11 languages now.
Yes.
So it is wonderful, because the soul itself is a topic of, people are very curious about the soul. People always have been. If you look in the Holy Quran, we find that there are accounts of people actually coming to Prophet Muhammad and asking him about the soul. And at that point, God did not want to reveal too much. And He says to Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, they ask you about the soul, say to them that you do not know much about it. Meaning, say to the people, oh people, you do not know much about it. Meaning, whatever you think you know about the soul, you actually don't know anything at all. There's a lot more to know about, and in fact, there's a lot of misconceptions about the soul as well. And there's a wonderful episode of Sykes done on the School of Divine Mysteries playlist as well, where he talks more in detail about the soul. And when he was explaining it to us, we were so amazed by that knowledge. And then he surprised all of us at the very end of that lecture, where he said to us, what I've told you is nothing. He said, what I told you about the soul is a drop in the ocean of the knowledge about the soul. So there's a lot out there to explore and to discover, and we're excited to go into it. And we're thankful to Sister Menna for testifying to what she experienced and witnessed, which will hopefully motivate and inspire others and build their faith.
Yeah, the soul is one of the most exciting topics that Aba Al-Sadiq talks about. And as Alia said, we know so little even now. But as you come closer to the proof of God, to the Imam of the time, he unveils more and more. And then more and more responsibility falls upon you to conduct yourself in a way that is a reflection of his morals and manners. And the soul is a repository of knowledge. Imagine, the soul never dies. The body dies, but the soul never dies. So every life that you have lived before, all that knowledge you have accumulated is locked up in the soul. And that's why prophets of God from the Greek tradition that we believe in, like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, talked about this topic. And in one of his books, Plato says, knowledge is not something you necessarily learn, it is something you recollect from remembering.
Amazing.
Because you were already knowledgeable about this before. And he demonstrates this with a beautiful example also in his books where Socrates grabs a boy and they discuss mathematics, and the companion with Socrates says he'll never get this. And Socrates knows something because he's a prophet and messenger from God. And then he demonstrates how this boy, this young boy who had never had any formal education or training in mathematics, is able to solve problems because of the knowledge that was locked up in his soul. So this is a science. It is a science that is known exclusively by the prophet, messenger, imam of the time who carries the Holy Spirit, and it is taught to those who are worthy of it. So let us all strive to humble ourselves and purify our hearts and become worthy of this knowledge that is with Aba Al-Sadiq in this day and age, the Qa'im of the family of Muhammad.
Well said, absolutely. Purifying the self and taking that moment to really reassess where we are, where we're standing within ourselves, what it is that we are believing in, and are we truly being sincere? Are we truly being dedicated? Do we have a white heart, or is that heart blackened by vices, by judgments, by ill-doing and evil thoughts? This is something that every human being must strive towards, and in particular those who profess faith in the call of the riser Aba Al-Sadiq, they are required to always do so, because that spiritual assessment, that spiritual journey that a person has towards God is not something we should neglect at all. And every religion has actually advised and recommended and encouraged and even mandated the fact that we spiritually cleanse ourselves, purify ourselves, but with that sincerity. And one of the ways that has been encouraged to do that is actually to meditate.
Yes.
And to find that peace, to find that place where you can detach from the noise and the chaos and actually look at the situation and think to yourself, well, what am I doing? What am I worried about? What am I angry about today? What am I stressed about today? What am I hurt about today, etc., etc., and actually be able to get away from that noise and go to a place of silence where you find what? You find God.
Yes.
So meditation is a big part of our creed. It's a big part of our practices. And we're very excited to take you now to our guided meditation segment, where you can take a few minutes to actually reflect, to reassess, and to find that serenity that we all need in the day. So please go ahead and join us in some guided meditation next year on Rise Up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are in the meditation segment. So for me, it's a great joy and pleasure to be sitting here, getting inside your homes and having a kind of encounter or relationship with you. The reason why I say that, in one of the things that I have been thinking about talking today is, before coming to the Dawah, I used to do a lot of meditation, and it is a great tool to deal with all the attacks of the shaitan and the whispers and things that happen throughout the day. It's something that we need to master. As they say, like, there is a strong man who, for example, defeats an army, but the strongest of all is the one who defeats themselves, which means would conquer themselves, which means the one who has the tool to understand what is themselves and what is the enemy within. So meditation is a great tool to raise awareness of God and awareness of what is not from God, and also to preserve that emptiness, an empty vessel, for God's will to be inside without so much noise or resistance. So that's one of the things that I think that the tool of meditation is extremely important for. And on the other hand, I want to talk about something that I discovered only with the Qa'im of Ali Muhammad, which is faith. And my conviction is that there is nothing that can get closer to faith. As much as we can, everything, every other aspect, every other attribute that we may develop, it has to be to serve that faith. That's why it's important to find that man that guides humanity, that is worth to giving it all. Because everything belongs to God, so we are all yearning to find that God back, so we can give all back to God. So today I read a very beautiful quote. This quote that I'm talking about was saying, it is from the, actually it's from the Quran, and it was talking about no matter what you go through, don't be sad or don't despair. It's going to be okay if you have faith, if you are a believer. So this touched me so much because I never get to meet faith until I met Aba Al-Sadiq. And I don't think there is any other cure or anything more important. And it has to also be a proof that it always has to be a man from God, because you have to put that faith on something. And the thing is that those who are really lovers of God, that really love God, it has to be possible that they find God on earth so they can have a relationship with Him, so they can have oxygen and breathe and function. Because otherwise, living in this darkness without any getaway, without any like hole in all this matrix, where you can always have to serve others based on their egos and their wantings and their misconceptions and all these oppressors and people trying to take advantage and selfishness, it's not possible. It's actually, for a believer, it's not possible to live unless you find that man of God. So for me, my own journey, my own love, and finding Aba Al-Sadiq, from him is peace, and this aliyah from the Quran as well, for me is all of it is a proof. And this path, this walk is kind of a 3D storybook that everything comes into being and everything comes into reality, and it makes all these things that we learn, that we read, that we're inspired by, applicable, and we owe to apply them, because there is no other chance. There is no other way. This is what I mean. There is no other way than applying them, because we know where not applying leads and we know where applying leads. So having said this, I wanted to set meditation as a tool, and I wanted to set faith and finding and looking and holding and walking with the man of God as the main unique thing that can save us from ourselves and that can keep us truly alive for this world and truly a light for this world. So here we go. Now let's get better at this meditating tool so we can serve better to our Imam. We're going to sit in a comfortable position. You can lay down, but I do recommend that actually you stay a bit in a state of alertness, that you don't go to sleep, so that you can actually exercise this inner discerning. So you're gonna sit down and straighten your back in a way also that is not painful. Obviously, that if you have any pain or any physical condition that you cannot sit like this, please, by all means, find a way where you are totally comfortable and at peace. Okay? This is your inner greatness, what you're going to exercise. The outer body has nothing to do with this, and it cannot be an impediment to it. So now we're going to find that position where we're comfortable. Those who want to keep alert, they just sit, straighten their back, also not in any artificial way, just in a way that keeps you alert, as I just said. We can close our eyes. And we can scan, we're going to scan our bodies from head, from the upper part of our head, all the way down. And if there is any place that requires us to move or to stretch or to relax, we do. If we find any tension in our neck, in our shoulders, in our back, in our legs, we relax that. We don't keep it tense. Now we're gonna spend a little while just feeling the energy inside our body without judging it, without evaluating it, without coming to any conclusion, without letting the mind label it in any possible way. We just feel. And we just feel the vibration, the energy, the light. If we go to the heart, we can feel the heart beating. Or we can feel the pulse somewhere in our body. And we acknowledge we're doing nothing for it to happen. We're not doing anything to keep our body alive at any moment, at any given moment. That's something that is in God's hands. Because He wants us to focus on better things, on other things. Now we're going to do the breathing a bit more intentional. We're going to breathe in, and then I'm going to say hold. We're going to hold. Then we're going to exhale the air and hold again without breathing in. And then we're going to breathe in again. I'm going to guide you. We're going to start. These help us keep focus on the breathing and on nothing else. If the mind is coming, if any thought comes, just ignore it. Say, it's not the time right now, I'm doing something else. It's your power, your choice. So just focus on the breathing. If there is anything uncomfortable in your position, you can rearrange yourself. And we're going to start with the breathing. We breathe in, we hold, we breathe out, we hold, and we breathe in. We hold, we breathe out. One more time. When we breathe in, we put the air in our belly. Let's try to fill our belly with air, not our chest. Let's go one more time. We breathe in, we hold, we breathe out, we hold, we breathe in, and we relax. We're gonna now, let's leave a bit our back to bend. We're gonna bend our back, and we're gonna take our chin towards our chest. We're gonna bend our neck. You can open your eyes and look at me if you have any doubt on how to do this. And you're gonna balance a little bit, tiny bit, front and back. And you're gonna let the weight go. You're not holding, you're not tense, you just let your weight go. And then you're gonna stretch back your back until the top of your head is facing the body, the roof. Good. Now we're gonna bend our neck to the right as if we would like our right ear to touch our right shoulder. And we breathe in that position. We're going to take a deep breath. And we let go. Slowly, very gently, we're going to go back to the middle. And we're going to put the left ear, trying to touch the left shoulder without doing any effort, just letting gravity go and work. And we're going to breathe in this position, deep breath. And when we exhale, we let it go a little bit more. Good. And then very, very slowly, we're going to go back to the center. Now we're going to look right. We're going to twist our neck right and left. Slowly, very gently. And we're going to face our face up and come back very, very gently. We are going to make our shoulders, round circles with our shoulders. And we're going to take the shoulders to touch our ears and breathe in at the same time. And we're going to breathe out and let go. 1, 2, 3. One more time, we're going to breathe in. Shoulders to the ears and let go. One more time. Release everything you're holding on that is not pleasant, that is not good, any thought, any energy that is not serving light again. Any tension, and yes, let go. Move your neck a little bit. We feel our heart where there is. We expand it, we relax it, we forgive, we fill it up with light. We give them endurance, forever, forever forgiveness, forever white, no matter what. That's what God wants from us. And we let it expand in our chest. We let our wrists, our shoulders, we massage them, we fill them up with light, we relax them. We go to our arms, elbows, hands, fingers, fill them up with light and relax them. We go to our head, our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, lips, teeth, brain, scalp, and we fill it up with light and we relax it. Now we're going to take a few moments to feel the vibration of our body, and we remember the vibration of our body before meditation. Stay in this state of awareness. Ignore any thought. From this state, anything that wants to pull you down is not from God. You don't need to listen to it. You don't need to believe it. That's your power. You're here before it comes. You're going to be here when it goes. Don't mix it with belief. Don't mix it with attention. Just put your attention on this vibration and take care of yourself only so that you can serve God. You can open your eyes. May all peace and blessings be with you. Thank you so much for joining today, and I see you soon, inshallah.
We're back here at AROPL Studios with our dear beloved sister, Aba Al-Mahdi. How are you doing, Karina?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you so much. It's really great when Karina comes, right?
Yes, it's a powerful spirit, always.
Alhamdulillah.
So, Karina, we were just watching Veronica, our dear sister, doing that meditation segment, the guided meditation, and we were discussing earlier about reincarnation and the return of the soul, and the fact that reincarnation actually has to do not just with the Eastern religions, as is commonly understood, but also with the Abrahamic faiths, and how Aba Al-Sadiq actually proved that with the Holy Bible, with the Torah, and the Holy Quran. And I think something that is important to point out before we jump into our next segment is that there is this idea that if you believe in reincarnation, then you cannot believe in heaven and hell. And that if you believe in heaven and hell, that you cannot believe in reincarnation. Can you please address that, Dr. Irfan?
Yeah, this is clearly not the case. And actually, I wanted to say something just on the meditation segment that Sister Veronica did, because meditation is one of the mechanisms that can actually be brought into the equation when you're talking about recalling past lives. There is a large number of therapists now who are actually doing past life regression, which is done in a state of meditation. So I think even the BBC did a documentary on this one. One of their reporters went and he was completely skeptical, and he was put through this process, and he had these images from 150 years ago when he's with elephants in India as a British guy. And then he remembered himself as being one of the soldiers of the British Raj. And it's fascinating. So meditation is for many things. It's for health. It's for your spiritual health. Mental health. It's a holistic practice that everybody should establish. And I think Veronica with her guided meditation is a very good means into that. So coming to this point about reincarnation and the existence of heaven and hell, these are not two mutually exclusive concepts. You can have many lives, but what we are taught by Aba Al-Sadiq the Qa'im is that you can live a certain number of lives on earth to achieve certain spiritual objectives. And then after you live your last life, then you are facing the final judgment, which is what the Muslims believe, and the Christians also, that they will be judged for their deeds and how they live. The only difference is we believe that you will come with a book that not only contains one life, but all of your lives that you lived. It is an opportunity to serve the prophets and the messengers. In the clip with Tiffany and Aba Al-Sadiq from the Divine School of Mysteries, we talked about how Moses and Elijah appeared on either side of Jesus as part of the transfiguration scene. So yes, to believe in reincarnation is not to reject the idea of a final judgment. And this is something I think, I hope I've made clear in this piece.
And it's important because if you see them as mutually exclusive, then you either have to reject reincarnation altogether or heaven and hell. And that doesn't make any sense because even if you look at it from a logical point of view, if God is just, then he wouldn't allow that there be one soul that has, for example, 5 years on earth because a child dies at the age of 5, while another soul lives to the age of 85. It wouldn't make any sense. And at the same time, it wouldn't make sense that you keep coming in cycles and then there is no end result. There's no heaven or hell at the end.
So true, Alia. And if we as human beings cherish the concept of equal opportunities. In a just state, every human being knows that we should all be given a fair chance. Then how can an all-knowing, all-good God have it so that a child dies at 5 from starvation or from a disease and somebody else lives 85 years and has all of the privileges in life? So reincarnation is God's way of balancing out life, and it is an equal opportunity and a meritocracy that God runs, not a,
Exactly. And I also want to encourage the viewers to actually check out the book Al-Hafd al-Sharif. It's an incredible Gnostic manuscript that is filled with knowledge from Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, one of the successors of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. And these are the secrets and the secret conversations that he actually shared with a very beloved companion of his, Mufaddal ibn Umar. That book is available on our website. It's been fully translated by Aba Al-Sadiq from his peace himself. So go ahead and check out Al-Hafd al-Sharif. It's a wonderful book to read, and it has so many incredible secrets in it about the soul, about reincarnation, and so on and so forth. Now, Karina, we wanted to actually go ahead and do something interesting today, which is make a few comments on the comment section. We have a lot of comments that come under the videos of Aba Al-Sadiq, under the words of the believers who make content as well. We wanted to actually extract some of those comments and talk about them.
Of course, yeah, that sounds cool.
So let's go ahead and let's read the first comment that we have. Let's put it on the screen for the viewers as well. And Dr. Irfan, why don't you go ahead and read it?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so the first comment is talking about the video that Aba Al-Sadiq did about reincarnation. It says, extremely engaging. Reincarnation as a concept is very much present in the Abrahamic religions, and this discussion proves it. The Shia Islamic doctrine of Raja is synonymous with reincarnation. For example, the idea of the return of Jesus Christ is subscribed to by over 4 billion people. The question is, does the physical body descend from the vacuum of space or self-assemble in the grave? Or does it re-enter into the world like every other holy or unholy man who came before, including Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. All of them were born from their mother. It is only the ego that would reject the logical conclusions presented in this fascinating episode.
Brilliant. I mean, that's very well said. It's a very well said depiction of that episode about reincarnation from the series. And it does make sense that the return of a person has to be through a mother. It has to be through the womb.
Of course, yeah. This is so... I find this the whole topic so fascinating because, you know, like how people have deja vu and these things, these phenomena need to have an explanation. And the fact that people have these experiences and they remember different, like they go through their life and they realise, wait, I feel like I have a feeling of familiarity.
Right. I've been here before.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
you see an old church and something. Yeah,
exactly. And the only way this can be explained is the fact of that you've been here before. That a lot of us have been, you know, have been here before. So, and only Father Islam is the only person who's actually, you know, given an example,
exactly, an explanation.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the only one who's been able to explain why we have these, you know, experiences.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of the comments when you go through the video, or you go through the comments under the video, you actually find that people out there have to admit it. And we find that there are even people who don't profess belief in the religion saying, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
actually.
and they still experience deja vu in that.
Exactly.
Which is why this is an amazing thing that every human being experiences at some point or other in their life. So when Father Islam comes with these, you know, with these concepts, then it's to deny what he's saying is to deny your own experiences. And honestly,
well said.
Yeah, you just have to. We have to get to a point where we can admit to ourselves that yes, this is something that's happening, and this is the only explanation that can really, you know, give it any weight. You know, the only thing that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think that, Karina, as you're talking, you know, and I'm again very mindful of the Muslim audience also because, you know, in the Quran itself, and when we talk about reincarnation, we also talk about that you return according to how you lived. So if you were a brutal, greedy tyrant, for example, who oppressed his people, then one of the things we learned is that you could return as an animal in the next round. And there is actually a little verse in the Quran that actually says, for those children of Israel who broke the Sabbath, and then it says, be ye apes and swine. So they were punished in the sense that they were to return as in these animal forms because they lived in those animal forms.
I mean,
they
how
followed
else do
their
you
lust,
explain it?
their greed. Exactly. How else you explain it? And it makes a lot of sense because how you live is what you attract. And this idea is very much in the book that Alia mentioned, Al-Hafd al-Sharif, which is a great treasure that was unearthed and translated exclusively by Aba Al-Sadiq, you know? And for disobedience and breaking the law of God, this is one of the punishments that can also come. It's called mask, and it is spoken about by Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar in his book, Al-Hafd al-Sharif, that was attributed to Imam Al-Sadiq. It is one of the great books that have been written, and all Shia should read it.
You know, I can't stop smiling because while you were speaking, I remembered something that while I myself was a child and I was reading the Holy Quran because I was raised Muslim, and I was reading that book and I came across that verse, and I remember actually asking many people as a kid, I went to many other adults who were Muslim and saying to them, please explain this to me, I don't understand. Did they magically become monkeys and pigs? What happened there? And the answer I got was yes, they did. You know, these people standing there just transfigured, like a movie in Harry Potter or something.
Yeah, when I was in primary school, actually, a lot of the Muslim children used to tell me stories about how, like, if a child was naughty, then all of a sudden they'd turn into a donkey or they'd turn into this, that, and the other. And even I used to think, whoa, that's so crazy. How is that possible? You know, and obviously this is because in their own innocent mind, and the parents are probably trying to explain to them. In fact, they didn't even realise what they were explaining to them. And, you know, like how we mentioned before, it's not all smoke and mirrors. There's an actual process and there's a way that these things are done. And I just wanted to say it's actually interesting because Father Islam mentions in his, in his videos that let's say, as you said before, you live the certain lifestyle, you know, you want to eat loads, or, you know, you want to go around doing certain things, then God will be just and he will give you a body that is, you know,
reflecting those attributes.
Yeah,
right?
You get a vessel that's perfect for you to carry out these things.
Yes.
And why would God give you a human body to waste when you're supposed to be, you know, a human body is for, you know, spiritual elevation,
Yeah.
exactly. So it wouldn't make sense that he'd give you a body just for you to do something that you can easily do in the body of
another creature.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So
Reincarnation,
it's
really, Karina, isn't it a form of divine justice?
Exactly, definitely.
That as you sow, you shall reap, which is the
100%.
divine law, which is what the Eastern traditions call karma.
Yeah, and even Hinduism, yeah, exactly. They teach it in their, you know, in their religion as well. And you know, it's funny because, you know, in the before I found Father Islam, I used to look into different religions, and when I saw reincarnation in Hinduism, I thought, you know, I was thinking, there must be something to it, because they're not just going to say, I know there's a lot of falsehood in a lot of religions, but reincarnation was something that really spoke to me, and I just thought there's got to be something to this, because it only makes sense, this whole, you know, karmic law. And that's why I said it's amazing how Father Islam is the only one who's been able to tie it all together, so it's actually amazing.
It really is.
As a Sunni Muslim, when I heard about the concept of Raja, because when I was looking into Islamic history and finding my way into Shia Islam, the religion that is through the Prophet's family, his Ahlul Bayt, specifically the 12 Imams, and I heard about this Raja, and I heard about Imam Al-Sadiq say, he who does not believe in this is not one of us. I mean, it was enthralling. It was like, what is Raja? I mean, you know,
It seems to be pretty important to know about and believe in.
Right.
Right.
And you even put it into a search engine and you see somebody, even if it's a non-working scholar talking about it, they know that it is the return of the personalities. They say all the Imams will return. And there are many, many narrations that are alluding to the return of Imam al-Hussein.
Absolutely.
And this is a pivotal point in recognizing this dawah, just as the return of Elijah as John the Baptist was so pivotal in Christianity. The return of al-Hussein, Imam al-Hussein, from him his peace, is actually a pivotal part of this dawah.
And the return of the Mahdi and the coming of the Mahdi. So for the Muslims to recognize, and in particular the Shia, they recognize that for the Mahdi to appear, Imam Hussein being around is a critical point, exactly in the same stance as Jesus would only come when Elijah had preceded him. So for Imam Hussein to return, it's necessary that the scholars and the Muslims out there, they recognize that they're not aware of how that would happen unless they come to terms with the idea that Aba Al-Sadiq, from him his peace, has actually come up and shown, and not come up with, but in fact shown through the scripture the truth and revealed what it would be, how Hussein would return, how the Mahdi would come, how the prophets and messengers would be around him and supporting him, through reincarnation, through Raja, through the return of the souls.
Exactly, yes.
We can go on to the next comment now. Let's see what other people have had to say about the same topic.
Let's bring up the second comment on the screen.
Now it says here, indeed, all the prophets and philosophers spoke about the soul, and they always called on people to stay away from the adornments of material life and to be preoccupied with spiritual works. That's true. The soul does not die, so it is logical for it to be repeated several times. Thank you, Sir Aba Al-Sadiq. This is what the individual is saying. Thank you, Sir Aba Al-Sadiq, for this wonderful episode in which texts from several religions were linked. And this means that the origin of all religions is one. That's another thing about reincarnation as a topic. It's one of those teachings of Aba Al-Sadiq that really ties in all religions. And that's a miracle that is supposed to be seen from the Qa'im. The Qa'im is meant to come with that miracle that he actually takes the religions and he shows that they're all one.
Yes.
And reincarnation is really one of those key topics that does that. That brings Buddhism,
it's a beautiful unifying force.
It is. It really is. It's incredible.
Yeah, and as I said before, a lot of different religions have actually touched on this. And as I said, only Father is the one who's really been able to go deep and explain, you know, and even when he talks about the soul and how it lives many different lifetimes. And I just find the whole topic so fascinating, and it speaks to you on such a deep level that, you know, when, as I said about deja vu, you start remembering things from past lives, and honestly, it's just mesmerising.
Yes, it really is.
You go into the Eastern religions, you know, and we believe that there are 124,000 prophets sent on earth by God to guide the nations. and one of the most, or two of the most populous nations on the face of the earth, historically and now, are China and India. And Aba Al-Sadiq, from his piece, revealed that Krishna, for example, was a prophet that was sent to the land of India to guide its people. Aba Al-Sadiq also, this blew my brain actually. When I heard this, it was, Aba Al-Sadiq got my attention, and he said, have you read in Genesis, the Table of Nations? And under the sons of Noah, there is one of his sons, Ham, has a descendant, who is named explicitly, and it's spelled R-A-M-A-H, Rama. Rama is one of the principal deities worshipped in Hinduism as a king who was ruling a state.
A just king.
A just king. And of course, we all know about the Ramayana. So, and not only that, the Buddhists who also subscribe to reincarnation, he revealed that the Buddha was a prophet returned. So Aba Al-Sadiq really has now given us that holistic view that reincarnation is present in every religion because it is a universal truth. And that is something that is very exciting, because now there is a link between Buddhism, Hinduism, previously thought of as foreign alien religions.
Polytheistic religions.
Exactly. Inventions of the devil.
This is like how they lose their credibility, because people are thinking, how can you come back? It just doesn't make any sense. And actually, as we mentioned already, it would only make sense for God to be so just, as you mentioned before. How can it be fair that someone spent such little time here? Exactly. How are they even able, if they've got to grow and learn, how are they even able to get to a point where they can actually start to, shall we say, navigate through life and learn how to spiritually elevate? Yes, children are innocent, and but obviously we have to grow and learn, and you can and you can't do everything in one lifetime. No. So it would only make sense that your soul comes back again and back again, and the things that you like to do, or the should we say the direction that you lean to, it would only make sense. Like how there's the best of the best and the worst of the worst. There's a reason why they're in the opposite ends, because throughout their lives they've leaned towards one side of things, and obviously in this day and age you've come to the epitome of what you aspired for in life. So again, it's only fair. So no one can't say, oh, I didn't have a chance, because actually technically this lifetime is your chance. So if you did come as one of the worst, and right now you have the chance to actually do the right thing and give your allegiance to Father Islam, because when Judgment Day comes, and we're all standing in front of that that final judge, you've only got yourself to blame, because we all have the chance now. In fact, as Father Islam put in his book, the Goal of the Wise, he said, God wants to start again. He wants to have a new relationship with everyone. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's so important that we heed. That is a warning in itself, if you think about it. Yes, it's a nice way of putting it, but it's a very serious thing, guys. And you need to realise that it's like now or never kind of thing. Unless you're lucky enough to come back again while this call is still happening, then alhamdulillah for you. But if not, you really need to make the decision and put it into practice that you're going to try and follow Father, and don't waste time, guys. It's literally, the flood is coming, as Father already said. Wow.
Yeah, and as Karina, you mentioned something interesting. I'd like to pick up on that. You said that the return of the worst is also happening. Why is it happening? Because, like I said before, reincarnation is really one of those manifestations of divine justice playing out. Because what happened to Imam Hussein? Why does he return? What happened to Jesus the Messiah? Why does he return? What happened to John the Baptist? Why does he return? Why do all these personalities return at this time, just before the founding of the divine just state? And it's because to create justice, those who were oppressed and killed and murdered and poisoned, this is now the time where the Qa'im leads the revolution for justice.
Yes.
By then having the personalities that have returned, the prophets and messengers, to seek revenge for what happened to them. And to punish the people who created these atrocious conditions and persecuted the men who were sent by God. So that is a very interesting...
and I'm going to say, with karmic law, how we, the theme of the conversation, again, we're talking about a just God here. So if you had a life, a life where, as you said, an atrocity happened to you, then again, God is giving you an opportunity now to not like seek revenge, but to like, as I said, restore the karmic balance. So you've had something happen to you. It's only fair that that person who wronged you would have something happen to them. And, as Father Islam is trying to create a divine just state, all these imbalances to karma have to be put right, and this is the time that it has to happen, because it's like a reset, if you want to call it that.
It is.
And
it's a divine reset.
Exactly. It can, and the divine just state can only happen once this. And I'm saying, because remember, God isn't just he spans, eternal. It's like there's no beginning and there's no end. So the karmic build up, if you want to call it, is from generations.
Yes.
It's like from the beginning of time, if you want to call it that.
Really
so
is, yeah.
you have to. This is a lot that has to be reset. So again, this is just something that we have to remember, and it's something that we have to have in our forefront.
And it's so. I have to say that you really made me think about something there, Karina. I mean, look at the way that religion is portraying reality and destiny of the human soul, and how limiting it is. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that mainstream religion is a very limiting experience in their understanding. That, okay, a person is born and they may die early and they may not, and that's fine, and then they go to heaven or hell, and that's enough. But Aba Al-Sadiq is saying, no, there's actually a whole story behind everything that's going on, and there's a goal that we're reaching, and in order to reach it, there's a whole, like you put it, generations of destinies and decisions that have to be accounted for now. Yeah. That's so incredible.
Yes, I was just listening to both of you, and I was inspired by this this idea of a Christian sect that was brutally exterminated by the Catholic Church. And I think it was maybe in the 14th century, somewhere around that time. But they're called the Cathars. They're very, very famous. And they trace themselves back to Mary Magdalene. And in their kind of ideology, reincarnation played a pivotal part.
Great point.
And why was it that the Catholic Church felt the need to exterminate these people? And they were putting all kinds of charges without any proof and evidence and burning these people at the stake. And the last of them that actually died, I forget his full name, but it was Guillaume something. And he said, and as he was being put on the stake to be burned alive, for the viewership of all of the Christian audience, in order to separate the ideology completely from the Cathars, he actually prophesied that he would return, and he would return in this century. Wow. So it's something that reincarnation...
My goodness, I had goosebumps just hearing that, because you think about that. How incredible is that? Imagine a human being everything is over and he's about to experience the most terrible turmoil and torture, and he knows. God puts that conviction in his heart and he says, I will come back. My job is not done yet. I have unfinished business and I will return. And he mentions when, and it falls upon this century that we're in right now. Wow. Exactly.
And there was a British documentary done on this, because there was a part of England where a lot of people were coming in this area talking about themselves being Cathars in France or in the northern area of Spain where they used to live. And they actually did this documentary because it was like 15, 20 people came separately and they were saying the same thing. And I definitely recommend you check out that documentary, because they were saying that they were alive in this part of France and they lived very happy lives, and they go into extensive details of what they ate, what they wore, how they used to commune with one another. And when you look into the Cathars, they were a very peace-loving people. They presented no military or political threat to the Catholic Church. But yet the Catholic Church would not tolerate even a single one of them in Europe, because reincarnation was a thing that they propagated as a central concept within Christianity.
Reincarnation is an empowering concept, and it's a clarifying concept, something which takes the control away from the common man and gives it back to the divine. And it seems to pose quite a threat to mainstream institutions of religion today. But people are waking up to the understanding, and we find that if we go ahead and further into the comment section, we see a lot of these comments where people are watching the videos of Aba Al-Sadiq and listening to his words, how he's presenting the truth of it, and they cannot deny what he's saying. Let's go to the next comment on the screen.
Okay, so the next comment is, it is extremely interesting that this concept of the Raja or return is mentioned, in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic texts. For sure, this end-time scenario is taking place now.
I mean, it's clear. It's something that people can't deny. It's happening around us. And we find that in the narrations, the signs of the end times are always aligning with mention of returned people. So if you go to the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, you'll find that while they mention the signs of war, the signs of rumors of war taking place in this age, when they mention diseases and plagues, they mention natural disasters, poverty, famine, all sorts of things. They mention the advancement of technology and the communication between the East and the West happening in a single instant. They also mention that along with these signs come people, and they name them. And Aba Al-Sadiq, in that clip that we mentioned earlier in Sacred Dialogues, takes those names. He mentions Joshua, the son of Nun. He mentions Miqdad. He mentions Salman, Elijah, John the Baptist, Jesus, Imam Hussein, Zainab from Islamic scriptures, Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon them. These are high names, like names of very great people, and they're meant to come with those signs. So absolutely that comment we read is completely true.
Yeah.
You can't deny that it's all happening at the same time right now.
And you know, I was going to say as well, which is quite interesting, is, you know, as you say, these are signs of the times, right? And I just think it's amazing how merciful God actually is, because if you think about it, He's given clues and little, should we say, Easter eggs. He's put loads of different ways for people to, should we say, just be aware. Look, He wants us to know Him, right? And He wants us to. There's nothing hidden from God, you know. Obviously, Him and Himself. Obviously, we know the essence of God. We'll never know, but I'm saying, like, for the things that we can know, He's been very open and, you know, pretty upfront with it. So what I'm saying is, the signs of the times, it's like so undeniable, like it's so in your face, you know, with how Kevin Al-Mahdi has his section with you know,
Unleashed.
Exactly. So even the Mother Earth is trying to get through to humans. It's funny, God is sending so much things to, not even like bombard us, but He's just sending so many signs and clues, guys.
Wake
like,
up calls.
Exactly. And it's just like, it's getting to the point where it's so in your face, like that you just you can't deny it.
You can't.
No matter how much the non-working scholars try, they will never extinguish the light of God. Like you said, Karina,
definitely.
God has left these little clues, these Easter eggs, as you put it.
Yeah.
For those who seek, they will find.
Those with eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yeah.
There's plenty of evidence.
There really is. Shall we go to the next comment?
Let's go.
All right, let's move on to the next comment on the screen right now.
Let's bring it up.
It says here, and this is actually by our brother James Pollard, who has that special correspondence segment that he does. So James here, he says, so many scholars have tried to grasp the concept of the return and become totally confused. Finally, it is becoming crystal clear through this call to return back to God for all corners. And that's something else that I think is worthy of note, that unfortunately, there's no religion on earth right now. And I say unfortunately, but actually it's quite fortunate, because we do have the true religion.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, in other religions, let's put it like that, there's this very confining mindset that God is for a certain people, or God is for a certain book, or God is for a certain nation, or a certain race. We don't say that. We say that God is actually, just like James put it, for all corners of the earth.
Yes.
While the earth is not flat, all corners of the earth basically indicates that everywhere on earth we find that God has sent His messenger. And if that is the case, through the ages. And the messenger of this day and age is Aba Al-Sadiq, from him is peace, and he's calling the people towards himself. Why? So he can bring them to God. And that is the whole idea of it. But the fact is that in this religion, you find there is a place for everyone. And if that is not the true religion, and if the people think that it's better to adhere to a religion that says that you need to speak Arabic to be a Muslim, and a religion that says you need to believe that Jesus died on the cross, and if you don't believe that Jesus died on the cross, then you do not receive salvation.
I think, you know, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say this, that this is the only religion that says there is a place for everyone.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think it's such, like, it goes to show how, should we say, misguided the other religions are, because that's such a selfish mentality.
It is a selfish mentality.
To say God is only for a certain sect of people. It's like, if there's only one God, how can He be for only one people? You know, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't.
And I think this is why, personally, I think Fathers is the only one who who's preaching a religion that is literally for the whole of mankind. For starters, it's a covenant of the soul.
Yes.
So this in itself would show you that it can't just be any one demographic, because it's an internal thing. It's nothing to do with external, nothing to do with your heritage, nothing to do with genetics or anything like that. So I think this is something that's so important. And if you agree with any of these religions out there, you have to admit to yourself that you're very selfish and narrow-minded. Sorry to say it so harshly, but there's just no excuse for, imagine there's someone who's lived their life doing good deeds, helping their fellow man and living righteously, but they don't get a chance at salvation because they happen to be, I don't know, Yes. I can't even think of any religion, but you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I totally do, Karina, and it's no longer a genetic or biological covenant. This is a covenant of the souls. We have moved away from that father-son tribal mentality. The seventh covenant comes to unify mankind. And the chosen people of God in every age are those people who recognize his spirit encased in a man, embodied in a man that he sent. These are the chosen people. Not based off of language or the perfect enunciation of the Arabic when you recite the Quran. This is not the criteria of God.
No.
The criteria of God is those who make that prostration to the Adam in their time.
And you know what's funny? It's people want to try and deny Father. It's because, and it's just literally, the same things are being repeated. This is the only way you've been able to recognise any religion. And it's so funny that it's so prevalent that everyone knows that people only follow them once they're gone.
Yes.
This is the only time
this is a tragedy that repeats itself over and over again.
If you read any religious book, this what is happening to Father happened to every single one of them. So that in itself is an indication that he's from God, because
he's following the same pattern.
Exactly.
His forefathers had a fate. He has the same fate.
Yeah, but you have to learn from the past civilizations' mistakes. Guys, don't follow their footsteps and then be one of the losers, as they say.
Exactly.
You really have to please. I just really want to just say, take note and don't be so blind. Don't let, how can I put it? Don't let society influence how you think. Okay, you have to be critical and just use the examples of the previous prophets and messages. Look how they lived their life. They always get scrutinised. They always get bullied, if you want to call it that. They're always
mocked and ridiculed and insulted.
Exactly. They're always on. They seem like they're on the losing side when actually they're not, because they're winners in God's eyes. And please just pay attention to these signs.
Absolutely. Wise words, Karina, and something that I really do hope that the viewers take into account. Those out there who are thinking to themselves, is there a truth in this? Definitely research it, investigate what's going on here, and see for yourselves what really is taking place. We've reached the end of our morning show time slot. We're going to be wrapping it up now. But it was a pleasure having you on, Karina.
Thank you so much.
As always, thank you for your words. Thank you for your powerful motivation. For the people out there, we really encourage that you take heed of those wise words. Make sure that you know that you can contact us from our website, which is on the screen right now, from the phone numbers on the screen as well. We enjoyed presenting to you today the teachings of the Savior of Mankind, Abdullah Hashim, Aba Al-Sadiq, from him is peace. Download the Goal of the Wise from our website. Check out the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel to see his episodes and the lectures he has done. And until tomorrow morning, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.